Welcome to the Perth Entrepreneur Podcast with me, Neil Gibb, where each week we use the stories and journeys of other successful business owners to motivate, inspire, and empower you to become the next breed of successful entrepreneurs. This week on the show, we have Helena Farrell. Helena is from Property Passion, Total Development Solutions, and Designer Import Direct. We talk about how Helena went from interior design to full-time property development and importing materials from overseas and mentoring others on how to do it to reduce their development costs. Welcome, Helena.
Thank you. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Helena is an interior designer, owns an architectural design company. She's a property developer. She imports materials for property development and various other construction projects, and also a mentor.
Yes, a mentor in property and importing building materials.
Wow.
So importing materials, teaching people how to do it in a safe manner and understanding what all the requirements are in order to do it successfully.
Incredible. So many different businesses there that all tie into one thing, which is real estate.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, and we've got a connection through real estate. So me and Helena have been friends for probably 3 to 4 years now.
Yeah, at least that, yeah.
And Helena has been an inspiration for myself and my wife as our little property journey has developed, no pun intended. We've always looked up to Helena and the projects that she does. Just the fact that in a really tough market, Helena was out there getting results, and Helena's results definitely inspired us to move forward and build our own businesses. So Thank you.
That's good. You're welcome. I didn't know I was influencing any other people. Well, it's nice to know.
Yes, you definitely influenced us, so thank you. So Property Passion, can you tell us a little bit about Property Passion?
Property Passion was set up some time ago as the design wing. So basically we do design, documentation. Also, Property Passion and the development business sort of overlap a little, but it's the primary business which does the design, the architectural work, the project management, so sorting out the projects, working with the contractors, working with the builders and all of that sort of stuff during the project.
Yeah, and that's for your own development, or is that for other people's developments too?
Mostly we're doing a bit of both. So we do outsource architectural work, design work to other people. We're doing numerous design things for other people at the moment. So we still do interior design through to the full package, the full design package from start to finish, as people want. And we also, through that business, we also help people with development sites and working out what will fit on it, as well as the projects we're involved in directly with project partners.
Excellent. And the architectural component, that is a licensed?
I actually employ a full-time registered architect, and an architect who's registered in Western Australia.
Brilliant.
With architecture, you have to be registered in each state of Australia. So her name's Priscilla. She works for me full-time. We work together on all of the projects, and she does a brilliant job.
Brilliant. I've seen some of your stuff as well. It's really, really good. So to employ an architect full-time, that must be quite a bit of an overhead. So you must have quite a bit of work coming through that business to support that? Yeah,
we have multiple work going through. We've been working on this for a number of years, actually. We're doing refurbishing 34 apartments, 6-storey, old 1960s built, 50s built building. This is just outside of what we're doing. We basically subdivided, had a lot of common land, started a few years ago. We helped them subdivide the land. They were previously told by planners they couldn't subdivide it. We ended up subdividing 1,000 square metres for them onto a green title lot, which they sold for just over $1 million.
Wow.
So that money now is going to be going towards refurbishing the building.
Yep.
It has a lot of upkeep that hasn't been upkept for a long time, so we're sort of helping them improve the facade, fix up issues with the building. We had to redesign car parking areas in order for the subdivision, so it was a mixture of being able to plan as well as being able to look at the site as a whole of what it needed to, because everything that you do requires compliance. So when you do one thing, it triggers another. So that's where we're good at solving problems.
And what suburb are these 34 apartments in?
They're in Mount Lawley.
Because I know a lot of your projects are in that sort of nice inner city ring, aren't they?
Mount Lawley, actually right on the border of North Perth. That might be under North Perth, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah, so more in the city.
So how have you how have you got into property in general? Because obviously you've got these three businesses that all tie into real estate, like we mentioned earlier. But obviously people aren't born with this sort of knowledge and expertise. So how does it all come about?
Okay, well, it started where I studied. I had my son when I was 24. And basically after that, I decided I had been studying interior design prior to that, for a few years prior to that, and working in the office interiors industry. So I was working in that industry doing fit outs. I'd been studying interior design and I finished it just after he was born. And basically after that, I needed to go to work part-time. So I worked in a furniture business, and at the same time I started advertising in the Yellow Pages, basically for interior design work.
Yeah.
So I just had a small ad. What I could afford was a small listed ad, and then I just started getting work from there, and then word of mouth, and then it sort of built up where I did it on the side so that I could have the income from both working part-time as well as having a young child, as well as doing other stuff. So I just dragged him around. I took him from pillar to post, the poor child. Every supplier in Perth knew him as a baby.
Yeah.
He slept very well in the car and in a bassinet and in a pram. So you just do what you do. I just gave it a go, and I thought, so from there I had a really good friend who I knew through school. And he had started up his own accounting practice. He did an accounting degree. He was a qualified accountant. He'd worked for another firm. Then him and another guy started up an accounting firm. So he helped me out a lot. He helped me set up targets. He's helped me set up budgets. He helped me over the first few years to set up a target of what to achieve in X amount of time, because I didn't have a clue of all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so kind of like a mentor role to help you.
Yeah, he's helped me start out with that, as
Yep.
well as I went to the Small Business Development Corporation, and they had various little grants that would help me do different courses. So I did as many courses as I could lay my hands on, because I had a limitation of funds as well to inject into it.
Yep.
But I just did what I did, and I worked long hours. I put the time in.
And were you working from home too?
Yeah, I was working only from home. I didn't have an office at that point. I didn't have any staff, anybody. And then it started just to get busier and busier. So then I started trying to employ people on the side, trial and error,
Yeah.
getting the right people.
Isn't it just?
And yeah, eventually it just sort of, my 5-year business plan was achieved in about 2.5, 3 years. So then I had to go back to the drawing board with them and sort of sit down and try to work out what next.
Yeah.
And so that's really, I left my part-time job, and I started doing that full-time basically after a couple of years, after about a year and a half of doing it. So I started doing decorating, design. I did some offices through other contexts that people had previously done through where I'd worked previously, but people contacted me directly somehow. I can't even remember how. I started doing display homes. I also got the contract somehow I don't even remember how, but I became one of the Dulux colour consultants early on in the piece when they first started doing it.
All these things just happen.
Yeah, and I just
as a
employed
consequence.
another person to help me with that, and then Bunnings Colour Consulting, we did that as well.
Oh.
So I did that for about 4 or 5, 6 years, and then I had another person, 1 or 2 staff who went out and did it after that.
Yeah.
And then in the end, I think I passed it on to one of the ladies that was working for me, because I decided to let it go. It was too much time, and it was more viable to do other projects.
And do you think that kind of snowball effect of all that work that just kept attaching itself, do you think that was just because people seen you out there doing projects, making stuff happen?
Most of it was word of mouth.
Yeah.
As I said, I started with an interior design business, and from there it just sort of developed, and then it built up the business over a period of time. It just was sort of like organically developed, ups and downs. It got really busy, and then I didn't have the systems in place because I didn't really, again, I trial and error, tried many different consulting firms to help me set up systems and procedures, and I knew they had to be done. I tried them. Some worked, some didn't. So I finally found a business that helped me, probably the best mentor that I had. I got a grant, which was a significant grant for business development at that point, and I used that money to actually engage a company that I'd heard of and that I'd met through another lady who was originally a client who I met through the colour consulting, as it turned out. So it all sort of went around in circles.
All ties in.
Yeah, and with that, she was brilliant. She finally hit the nail on the head. She understood what I needed. She went for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. She did a true SWOT analysis and said, no, your strength is here. This is what you need to focus on. You need to employ other people to, pick up and work around you so that you work on what you do best, and then the other people can do what they do best.
Yeah.
And so that's what that really taught me. She came in, rehashed all of our systems, rehashed our computer software, all of the stuff, had people come through, some of whom I was already working with. She knew exactly what they could do, what they couldn't do, and got other people to. She contacted past, present clients and spoke to them and sort of worked through. It was very thorough.
Wow.
And it helped it helped reset up, rehash the business to the point where instead of having going up and down, it was profitable, but there was, when it got busy, it just got out of hand very rapidly.
Yeah. And the systems break.
And then exactly, and then when it wasn't, when it wasn't as busy, it was more efficient, but not as profitable because there wasn't as much income coming in. So that helped develop the business. And
so what was that mentor's name?
Oh, that's a lady named Deb Pitter. She actually she's become a very good friend of mine now, and she runs a completely different business.
Right.
So I've remained friends with her. So we're very good friends.
Excellent.
Yeah, and my importing's helped her in a new business, as it turns out. So there you go.
Excellent.
My importing knowledge that I developed.
So from property passion, you then set up Total Development Solutions?
Yeah, once after a while I got I was really burnt out with the business. It was very stressful, very tiring, a lot of hours. It was working very well. We did large high profile projects. Rio Tinto was one of our larger clients. We did their office tower. So that was the last project I did through the business. And then I basically sold the business, the goodwill, and kept the name and went away for a holiday for about 3 months.
Stepped away.
Yeah, so I got out of that completely, out of the interior design, and I just started doing investing myself.
Yeah.
And the investment eventually went into property developing, and that went and developed in Total Development Solutions after that.
And where did you learn about developing? Because it's a certain skill in itself, isn't it?
Well, I'd done portions of developing with my design business because as it worked out, even though it was an interior design business per se, we did do a lot of building design. We did a lot of building refurbishments, in which case I actually employed architects. I employed building designers. So I employed and outsourced all the consultants, engineers. I always engaged other people rather than saying no. I knew we had the capacity to do it, and it was of interest to me to do it.
Yeah.
So I just outsourced the people that were required to make it happen. So it was inadvertently, we did large apartment redevelopments for developers. And so although I was only doing a portion of it, I did know that they were doing other stuff. I just hadn't done the other stuff. I hadn't sourced finance. We helped them with the marketing, but I hadn't dealt with the marketing consultants. We dealt with the marketing consultants for them to provide them with, sample boards, visuals, renders, all of those sort of things. So we provided them with portions of it. But I was still in the industry where I saw it happening. And I was one part of it.
And so just gaining that knowledge through every different little project that you did.
So it was, just picking up and working out, okay, what do I know? What don't I know enough about? What do I have to learn about and learn about it much more effectively? And through smaller bits and pieces, did smaller little projects, small subdivisions, renovations, did lots and lots of renovations for a very long time.
Yeah.
Became very proficient at those because we did a lot of those in the design business anyway. And then so through that, you're working through my design business. We did construction project management all the time. So we, basically subcontracted all the trades out. We scheduled. We did all the bits and pieces. The only thing we didn't do is we didn't get the funding. So funding was very new. Sourcing finance was very new. Dealing with lawyers was not new because we always had to do contracts with the business, but they were different contracts now. So that was new.
Yep.
I guess marketing was new because normally the people who we did the work for sold the products, so we never had to do that ourselves. Did a little bit of marketing with residential real estate that we subdivided and sold. So, but not to the level of anything larger than that.
Marketing changes quite a bit now, doesn't it, with all the social media platforms and ways we can reach people?
Yeah, so that was something that we just had to learn how to do, and also feasibility analysis. I didn't know really how to do that. So the whole part, I guess, what I learnt when I learnt the most about this as well was I did Bob Anderson's. That's who another mentor. First of all, Bob Anderson. Yeah, still keep in touch with him every now and then.
Yep.
Yeah, he does. He does property development, which is pure niche property development.
Yeah.
And I learnt a lot through him.
So another mentor that you gained experience from and guidance.
Yeah, a lot of it was an education program which set everything down clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Also, then I did the 12-month mentoring program with him where we met up, I think 5 or 6 times a year, 4, 5, 6 times, I'm not sure. On top of that, I could call him and if I have questions and bits and pieces.
Yeah, nice.
And I learnt how to do feasibilities from there. I learnt about estate mastering using that program, which is my preferred program for feasibilities. I learnt what it involved. I learnt development, what was involved, how to source different consultants, who you need and who you don't need. And also he went into how to source funding as well, different types of funding, different ways to fund.
Because I know you do quite a lot of development work within, like you say, the Subiacos, Mount Lawleys and Leederville, and they're expensive suburbs. So how do you go around to get the finance required for them and do them actual projects?
Look, I'll be honest, each project is totally individual. It depends on the situation, the property. Most of them are with other individual people who want to do property development, usually are time poor, and we put together an agreement whereby you can call it a joint venture. There's all different terms for it, partnership, whatever you want to call it, but an agreement whereby they provide the funding to a certain extent. Sometimes I provide some of the funding. It depends on the situation. Usually they provide the serviceability, or then again, basically what you require from a project is money to start off with, so deposit, and then you'll require money during the project when you start construction. So whether that be that person has the individual cash as an investor to invest in it, or whether other investors are required, it depends entirely on the project.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes a mixture of different people. It's sometimes one other party.
And how do you find these people? Because I get a lot of people contacting me saying, how do I put joint ventures together? How do I raise finance?
I guess I also, in the past, I have raised finance through, being able to get the finance in myself, part of it, some of it's through the other project partners. It's really, it's relationships, honestly. At the end of the day, it's relationships.
Yeah.
And it's also, I guess, your knowledge base as well. What can you bring to the project? Can you bring knowledge? Can you bring expertise in any shape or form? Are you able to, what's your background? Are you able to provide the time? Because it does take time. Yeah. And then at the same time, if you don't have, the experience or expertise, what are you going to do to get it? You'll need some level of experience and some level of, you'll have to bring that to the party in order to make it happen, or you have to be a very, very good project manager, coordinating everybody effectively.
So I had some, for instance, I had a young guy contact me through Facebook last week, and he'd seen a post that I'd done about doing a joint venture with somebody, and he contacted me and just said, I want to do a renovation for my first deal. I've got no money to do it. How do I go about approaching people to get them to fund the project for me? Yeah.
Okay. Well, my first question is, what do you know?
Yeah.
Okay. What can you bring to the table? The next question is, how much time do you have? What is your background? Mm-hmm. So what were your answers to that question?
Well, I said I'll ask Helena because I'm interviewing her next week.
Put me on the spot.
Yeah, I kind of said to him, you've got to approach it in a professional manner. So I said, get out there and start networking.
Absolutely.
Get yourself some business cards printed out with your name on and your email address and your contact details.
Yeah.
And everybody's card that you get at a networking event, follow up the next day with them, flick them an email and just make them aware that you are there, you are keen.
Yes, absolutely.
And basically, I think your first deal has got to be a small deal, and you've got to do it with people that you know, be it your family or your friends or a mixture of them. Try and get one under your belt, and then you can use that as a case study to approach other potential joint venture.
I agree. If you haven't done it before, and if you haven't been involved in the industry before, you really need to get something behind you, exactly like you've said, because people, there's a certain amount of confidence in a certain amount of knowledge. I guess I've been at an advantage in that I've been in the industry for a long time.
Yeah.
Didn't realise quite how long until just now after we discussed it. But in that, it means that I know the basic processes. I know how to do this stuff because I've been paid to do it by other people for them.
Yeah.
So in effect, and I also I have a consulting firm. I actually have a company set up that actually does this for a living.
Yeah.
We are between the people I employ and the people that are within my business and myself, we are actually qualified to do project management in construction.
Yeah.
We have the ability to do the design. And if I wasn't doing the design directly, I'd have the ability to engage other designers and know exactly what's required.
Yeah.
I know the R codes, I know the subdivisions. So we have that knowledge base, but not everybody has that.
Yeah.
So I guess relationships by networking, absolutely. Join investor groups, join networking development groups, join groups that have anything to do with property.
And if you've got no background at all, would you recommend offering your time to somebody else to say, I want to join, I want to offer what little skills I do have?
I have had people approach me saying, can we come on site and help out, even as labourers. A labourer might not have, you can't call them a trade because they don't have a trade qualification to work on site as a tradesperson, but will they learn some of if they're cluey, if they're interested, if they're motivated? I mean, motivation is number one.
Yes.
Attitude is the most important thing. They'll be able to learn how to do a lot of different skills on site. Okay, they might not become a bricklayer and they might not become a roof carpenter, but can they do a lot of the bits in between? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a diploma of building construction. I've been on site and supervised and checked and just looked, even when I had no idea what I was looking at. I sat there for days on, hours on end looking at how a roof carpenter built a roof. They thought I was a bit crazy, but, what are you doing? I just want to see what you're doing.
Soaking up the knowledge.
Yeah, well, just actually physically. It's one thing learning how to build a stick roof in a classroom with other people and working off, the timber framing code and doing it technically.
Yeah.
It's another thing actually seeing people build this, because sometimes you draw it and things have to be tweaked and changed because they don't quite work 100%.
Yeah. So just get out there, get some exposure to a project, whether it be a renovation, whether it be a development, or even if you're just in the office.
Exactly. If you can offer your time for free to somebody just to go down and help out, or even at a minimal wage, at a base wage, just to help out on site, and you'll be exposed to it. And the more questions you ask, the more you'll learn.
Yeah, excellent. So in the last few years, I've noticed that you've been doing development in Perth and in a market that's been tight. And how have you been making your development stack up and profitable?
Oh, there's a couple of ways. I mean, they have been very tight. They have been difficult, so, and some have made good returns. Others have made a little bit. So I would say that I guess at the end of the day, if the project partner that you're working on can make a bit of interest on their money out of the project, and as well as, you make a project management fee out of the project, to the average person, that's still money, if that makes sense. It's still a couple of $100,000 return on a project, which technically to me is not profit, but at the same time, they still do stack up.
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day, it comes down to a couple of things. Finding suburbs that have got enough demand that you can actually sell the end product. Look, the market changed a lot in 12 months in Perth, 18 months, and it did plummet. So can you anticipate that? Not really. You can work on what it is now. How far can you anticipate into the future? Nobody's got a crystal ball. So
I wish I did.
Oh, exactly. Inadvertently, property development has probably the largest risk factor is you can't predict what's happening. You can, do all the research in the world and get all the information from all the forecasters in the world. Does it all come true? No, it doesn't. Does some of it come true? Yes, sometimes. But are you going to be in exactly the right suburb at exactly the right time, buy at exactly the right time and sell at exactly the right time to make maximum profits? Not always, and not often.
Hard.
Exactly, yeah.
So is a flat market better to do development in?
If it's flat and it's not moving up or down, it's good from the perspective that you can predict easier. So you know what you have to buy for, you know what you're going to, you've got a better idea of what you can sell for, and then you work within that. So really, at the end of the day, it's providing a product that's a little bit more niche. Like we tend to do inner city or closer to the city downsizer-based projects, which are more upmarket. I have the importing company where I import building materials at a lower cost than Australian products, same sort of products that are actually available in Australia now.
Yep.
So these people that sell at retail would be sourcing them from the same places, similar places to where I buy from directly.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can provide a benefit to the project of lower cost.
Yeah.
So cost of construction is reduced. So that is a big, big benefit. We can do fairly upmarket on a basis of much lower cost than what the builders would charge for here.
Yeah.
So that has helped our jobs considerably.
So the labour component still remains the same because you're using Australian-based trades, but the materials are brought in at a cheaper cost.
Yes,
but
that's right.
To the same standard that we use in Australia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So are these, say for instance, basins and sinks and toilets and stuff like that, are they the same standard that the likes of Reece and Bunnings and other wholesalers are supplying?
Oh, in fact, a lot of the suppliers of products that I buy, Reece sells, as well as very well-known brands in Australia sell the products, because when I've been in the factories, I've seen boxes and boxes of materials, container loads of products going out, and they're all labelled with the company's boxes. It's very clear. It's very clear who these companies are selling to when you go through their physical factories and you go through their packing and dispatch areas, and you see all the boxes that are being made with stamp A, stamp B, stamp C.
Yeah. So you're buying the same materials that the wholesalers supply in Perth, but without their markup on them, and that's where you're making the saving.
That's exactly right. That's where you can make a saving,
Yeah.
and you can. The more upmarket the material, the more middle to upper end the product is, the more the savings are.
Right. So the lower end stuff, there's not as much profit in.
Not as much profit in the lower stuff, simply because Bunnings, who have got, they generally buy the lower cost products as one of their cheaper lines, and they buy them in volumes of thousands and thousands.
Yeah.
So reality is, once the company's got Bunnings, it usually is a more cost effective product out of China, out of overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is that that product is bought in volume. It's still compliant. It still meets all the Australian standards. Otherwise, retailers here wouldn't be selling them. They'd have too high level of risk. Mm-hmm. But what it is there's not a lot of profit in it, because Bunnings don't put a massive profit. They rely on large volume as well.
Yeah. So how did you get into, how did Design Imports Direct become a company? How did you get into that? Because again, that's another sort of niche area that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to get set up.
That really started with, basically we were doing, we started to do projects in the northwest of WA, just small subdivisions, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then
Port Hedlands?
Yeah, Port Hedlands, Karathas, through there, something in Newman. And anyway, in looking at those, we had to, we had some sites, started looking at properties up there, and also just doing consulting for other people, and the cost to construct was very high. So we had builders up there who were trying to reduce costs. So the importing started simply through wanting to reduce costs. And then at that time, Bunnings did a product called Smart Space Homes. They actually did a number of years ago. Mm-hmm. They produced and sold 1, 2 and 3 bedroom kit form housing.
Really?
A lot of people don't realise that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they do. They did a product now being advertised in New Zealand through Bunnings.
Yeah.
It just didn't take off in Australia. What happened was, and basically I was involved with, I assisted them with some of the design stuff, some of the other bits and pieces, and also we also worked with the builder who was doing the construction, we introduced him, started to do the construction. Inadvertently, it all went from there. We went to China to have a look at, through the procurement person who ran this for Bunnings in China, in Shanghai, and saw what was available. And honestly, the first trip to China, when I was taken to some of the factories and manufacturers, and it was just like, wow, this is all the stuff that's at home, and it's like nowhere near the cost of what they're selling it for at home. You do certain products, you do need volumes. With the market slowing down in China as well, the volumes have reduced. But that said, it just opened up the whole importing opportunity. Yeah. And from there, we started working on prefabbed housing. looked into modular as well, and it just started from there. And the prefabbed housing made sense in remote locations because you didn't have all the material availability in that location.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it started from there and then just sort of snowballed from there.
As everything else does.
Yeah.
So how long does it take, say, for instance, you come up with the design for a block and then you get your material list and you know what can be sourced from overseas at a reduced cost, then do you physically go to China and pick these things, or have you got a list of items that you can send over to your contact over there that then sends it over to you? What's the process?
Now that I've been doing this for so long, I've started doing this honestly about 9 years ago. I have got suppliers and manufacturers that I prefer to use. I've been through many different companies. I have agents over there who help me with the consolidation, which is basically normally when larger companies buy materials, they buy one lot of materials from one company, they pack it in a container and send it straight to Australia. If you're the Caroma or the Reese, you'd buy a whole container load of toilets.
Yeah.
But because I'm buying in smaller volumes, I buy products from all over from different suppliers. And then I have somebody over there who basically packs it all into a container for me, mixes it all up. And we do some of the quality checks. We go to China quite regularly. I have people over there who are also good at doing quality checks depending on what it is.
Yep.
And from there, we basically do that. So now, do I always have to go to China every trip? No. When I first started, did I go to China? Yes, often yes. And every trip I looked at new suppliers, different people, went to various fairs throughout China and looked at what was available and what people were selling and what the quality. Because the big thing that people don't realise is that 3/4 of what's out of China is not suitable for Australia because it doesn't meet Australian standard compliance.
So it's been a lot of trial and error for you to go backwards and forwards to China to find them right suppliers that will supply the right standard of material that we use in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the suppliers in China often say, yes, we have Australian standards. They send you certificates, and the certificates are only half of the certificates that are actually required. So it was also learning about, I understood standards to a degree because of the business we're in. However, you go into a shop and you don't go into Reese Plumbing and say, can I see the watermark and the Wells rating on that toilet? You don't go into, your different suppliers, your window suppliers, and say, can you give me the testing report results for that window and that window and that window and that window?
We just believe it has it.
We just believe it has it. We believe it complies. We believe it's already there because it is the duty of care of the supplier to make sure that it's compliant. So basically we would assume a lot of stuff we buy is compliant because we don't ask the question because here we make that assumption they're selling at retail. Yeah. Whereas when you're buying it direct from the supplier, the factory, you're actually that middle person that you're buying from takes the responsibility to make sure that product's compliant. You have to make sure that product's compliant because there are risks and rewards to doing everything.
Absolutely.
And to get the reward, you also need to do your homework to reduce your risk.
Yeah. So of the 9 years that you've been importing material from China, how many years do you think it took you to fine-tune it so that now you've got it?
I was doing it bits and pieces, not massive amounts, and here and there for a number of years, trying out different bits. So I wasn't doing it for larger, on volume. Look, probably the last 5 years I've fine-tuned it significantly because I became more knowledgeable. I made the assumption that whoever, again, very much an Australian assumption, we go into a shop here and we assume that when people tell us something's compliant and they give us a test result, we won't then ring up the testing body and make sure, hey, is this compliant?
It's true.
It's true.
It is true.
If somebody gave you a test, if somebody gave you something that needed testing, would you then go back to the company who did the testing, wherever they might be, and say, okay, you did the testing on this. Is this your certificate? Did you test for this company on this date, and is this registration number made out to this company? Yeah. No, you'd never do it. So I just had to learn through time that you just had to be more vigorous and more detailed. Yeah. And that's it. And so I just picked up trial and error. Fortunately, I didn't have a lot of disasters. Some things came in and they weren't quite as expected.
Different colours or different shapes? Or?
They weren't built correctly and they weren't made exactly correctly. Some cabinets were wrong. Yeah. And then I looked at our drawings and the drawings again, I didn't know, the drawings we supplied and then the production drawings that came through, I didn't check them, somebody else did. I wasn't doing that part of it.
Yeah.
And I realised, hey, if I supply the drawings, I'm also going to have to check production drawings because the production drawings, they changed from the original drawings.
Right.
So what we had and what they gave us was different. And another person approved the production drawings, not realising that, in Australia, if the cabinet maker makes it wrong, he'll fix it because he's been on site, he's got a finished building, he's gone on site and measured it all. Well, in China, you're actually ordering it before the building's up.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that the process along the way. It's not that difficult. Builder has he has to comply to Australian standard tolerances. So, his walls can't be out of square X amount and his floors and his rooms can't be X amount out in size.
Mm-hmm.
So when you design now, we've learnt through trial and error that we design it so that we allow for those tolerances.
Yeah.
And that's it. And since we've been doing that, we have very few problems with them.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So if any developers out there now that are thinking, maybe this is the way I can reduce my cost on my construction, is there a way you can help them? Do you import direct for people, or is it?
Yeah, we have a business called Designer Imports Direct where we do import directly for people. We've been importing stuff for a couple of builders in Perth, quoting different bits and pieces. Investors who are doing small properties renovations, we've got a little bit of stock of bits and pieces, not a great deal, but I've streamlined that now again. I'm streamlining to the point where we're offering ABC products. So this is a business that's just in progress right now.
Yep.
We're working on a website. It should be up in the next few months with basically a range of products. Some will be available immediately. Others will be on order, back order. And people can, pick all of those. They're all middle to upper quality end products and not your stock standard, really cheap basic products. I don't see any point in selling those. You can get them in Australia already.
It's too much competition.
It's just not worthwhile.
So will you have a showroom for all this, or will it just be a website and then you order?
Most of it will be a website. As of middle of the year, we'll be moving into a warehouse, which is more efficient, and I want to set up a small showroom in there, just a small little room with just samples of what products, the stock standard ones that we'll be selling, and an example of anything custom made with a couple of samples of those.
Yeah.
But that'll be middle to later on in the year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When you find time with everything else.
We're just making time, that's all. You have to do it somehow.
And you're also mentoring other people to teach them how to do this as well, aren't you?
Yeah, that's something very new. Started last year through Knowledge Source. Knowledge Source is the management company, marketing company that's running it. And basically that is we're doing 3 events in the year, 2-day events. It's actually been currently run through Knowledge Source as part of their quantum program, and that's a Dimpner Boholt program. With that, I just basically do a step-by-step do-it-yourself. So this is the 2-day event is a do-it-yourself program. I've broken down all the steps of what I do into, bite-sized pieces of 1, 2, 3. This is how you source, like basically sourcing, what to look out for, cover a bit of Chinese culture, expectations, communication, all of that sort of thing. Also, then I go right into, sourcing products. How do you differentiate? How do you fine-tune? How do you select products? Sourcing agents, talk about production, pre-production, and then, quality control, and then shipping. And all of those. So I break it right down.
So they get access to all of your IP and all of your contacts over in China?
Not for the 2-day event, no.
Not for the 2-day?
No. The 2-day event is a do-it-yourself that teaches them how I did it and how I source people and how I find people even today.
Yep.
New people, new suppliers. Then from there, I also do a mentoring program. That's a high-level program, which is 12 months, and that is hand-holding people, going through their projects in detail, looking at what they want. And basically that is where we do a trip to China.
Yep.
And they get to meet people I deal with. So I take them to the factories, the suppliers, they meet the agents, and then they do get all the IP and all the things that have taken me 10 years to sort out.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So that is something else, and that's worthwhile if people are actually doing projects. Yes.
Excellent. So, I mean, again, there's a lot going on there, isn't it? It all ties back in.
Yeah.
So
it's all sort of integrated within the one thing. I mean, the mentor, the the importing came about because of the property investing, because of the building, because of the developing, all of that sort of stuff. It all sort of came about because of that. And as soon as once I saw the benefit, it was really hard to get out of it, because now I look at retail, I walk into Reece and I just about pass out with some of the prices. Yeah. I understand why and I understand how, but, the other thing is, we get, windows, double glazed windows is pretty much stock standard, commercial framed. We do a lot of properties with 2.7 high glazing sections, which require fairly heavy duty framing, you know. So the cost for those here is quite costly, and it's more cost effective to import them.
Yeah.
And again, we've found products that are currently sold by retailers and by companies in Australia already, and I basically go to companies that are already have a significant impact here in Australia already, but nobody knows who they are, because they advertise as company ABC here, whereas the factory in China is another company.
Right.
They don't ever sell under the factory name in Australia.
Yeah. Interesting.
So you would never know. How would you know? You wouldn't. No.
And again, we go to them as consumers, and we just assume that everything is too standard, and we're buying Australian products.
Yeah, which you just have to check that that's the case. So, you do take on the responsibility as a supplier. So there is a responsibility. You can't get the lower cost for no risk.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, yes, if people say, am I responsible for that product? Yes, you are, because as the importer, you will be.
Right.
So I've decided that that's worth it, because I mitigate my risk through the quality of the products and through quality control and other processes that I've set up.
Incredible. So how do you fit all this into a day in the life?
There's not enough time in a day. There never is.
Not, is it? I sometimes scratch my head and think, where's that day gone? But you must be constantly doing that. What does a day in the life look like for you?
Well, my things to do list is unrealistic. That's normal. I had the consultant told me that many years ago. She said, you do realise that you've got about 2 weeks of work in 1 week, 3 weeks of work in your 1 week to do list. I said, yeah. You basically work through getting people in to work with me, help me through stuff, outsourcing some of the work as well. That's important. Working out what I do want to do, what I need to work on and what I don't need to work on has been a very big learning curve.
It's hard as well, isn't it?
It's hard to let things go, because, people do things different to you. You can train them in your methods, you can train them in procedures, you can train them in all of these sort of things, but they'll do stuff like slightly different. I've just learnt over time that my opinion is just my opinion.
Yeah,
it's not fact. It's not necessarily true. It's just what I believe, what I think. So that's been a big learning thing over the years, and also giving people the opportunity to do things their way once it's understood how you want it done.
To let them flourish in that role.
Take it on board. Own it.
Yeah.
Once there's ownership of a job, once there's ownership of a responsibility, the outcome's much, much more effective.
Yeah.
They might do it in, you might go from A to B what you believe in a straight line. You might actually be going in a curved line. You don't actually know that. And they might go in a curved line in the other direction, but the outcome and the end result is the same.
Yeah.
As long as they're within a timeline, within a parameter of requirements, and they meet the brief, I've become much more accepting of, it's not my way or the highway, it's the end result.
Yeah. And we get there eventually.
Yeah, well, it has to be effective time-wise. Eventually doesn't work for me.
So I know a lot of small business owners, they get to the point where they need to let go of certain aspects of the business to be able to grow it, and that either involves employing someone full-time, part-time, or using outsourcers, whether they be overseas or just locals, but using cloud-based software. So how do you, there's so many things there. What do you outsource?
Look, the accounts and administration aspect, like the accounts, I have a very good bookkeeper who runs the day-to-day entries. I have an excellent accountant who I'm outsourcing more and more stuff of the management of the business to him. I see him regularly to update and keep on top of stuff. I'm always a little bit behind the 8 ball, but not significantly.
Kind of like a CFO type role.
Yeah, the business isn't big enough at the moment to really warrant bringing in somebody full time.
Yeah,
it's a 50-50. So right now, I'm going to be pushing some of the bookkeeping, more of the accounts based stuff that's just beyond the bookkeeper back to the accountant. It's more efficient. So that's how I'm managing that part of it, which is important. We do our own invoicing, so between me and a couple of other people in the office, we just sort of keep on top of that. Sometimes it gets a little behind, but we pick it up as quickly as we can. The other thing is the design and all the design part of it, and all the planning and the approvals and all of that sort of stuff. I push that on to the architect that works with me, as well as another person who helps them out as well. So that person does a bit of everything. So basically, we're a small business. So, and you've also got to be conscious of, you want to grow, but you've got to look at the cost to grow, as well as it's a very fine line between putting too much money into having too many people there that the business doesn't make any money at all.
Yeah. Because the overheads are so high.
Yeah, you've got to manage the overheads. Already I've got very good people who who aren't going to be the lowest cost people around to employ, but they definitely are far more effective than anybody else I've ever had. So it's a matter of managing those. And yes, I outsource that, and then currently the importing stuff I'm doing predominantly myself, but I have a new business partner who I brought on board with the designer imports. So she's taking over part of that. So that was something that I either grew or I let just kept it and just did it for our own projects. I decided that we want to grow it. So I brought in, that's a separate business that I have a business partner with.
Right, so
that's another option.
And they're going to manage that full time?
They'll manage the general day-to-day running of that, but I'll be still sourcing. I'll be looking at products. I'll be doing all the compliance stuff. I'll be doing all the parts of it that I currently do, but the day-to-day management of getting orders underway, I'm still working on those at the moment until they get more knowledge. But
and so you had to systemize and process that business so it's running under.
That's what we're working on at the moment. We're setting up a website for that, and we're also going to systematize it all and we're setting up procedures and all of that. So getting somebody in to help us do all of that effectively.
And I know this is something that I struggle with, systemizing and putting processes in place. What sort of time frame would you allocate towards getting them systems and processes in place for that specific business?
It's very hard.
It is, isn't it?
It is. That's a very difficult question because it always takes longer than what you think.
And what you want.
And what you want, yeah. Unless, again, you can get consultants in, high-level consultants to cut that time, and you can invest in those consultants. It becomes more difficult to manage the time. So can I give you a time? Ideally, within about 3 months would be ideal, but...
that long?
To get everything set up, including a website, get systems, procedures in place, get it all, because you're looking at starting from scratch. So you're looking at getting your products, listing your products, getting the pricing, getting all the artwork, all the high-res photography just for the website, getting a consultant set up, all your copy. If you're employing a copywriter to do the whole thing lock, stock and barrel, and you're paying $10,000 for a web development where somebody's doing absolutely everything for you, then... yes, but we're trying to keep it more cost effective at the moment by not doing that. So the flip side I've found is that the time to the cost is always there's always a
time versus money.
Exactly. You're always balancing the two.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yes.
It's tricky. So outside of business, do you have time for anything else? Do you have any hobbies or anything, any passions outside of real estate that we don't know about?
My main hobbies is looking for property, but besides that, looking around at property, going to Home Open, seeing what other people are doing. But no, besides that, I guess hobbies, time spent, trying to just chill out and see friends and spend a little bit of time with friends is not a hobby, but it's something I try to do because there's not enough time during the week to often do it. I also do meditation. I've taken that on to try and still my mind over the last few years, particularly the last 12 months. And so I try to put aside time every day to do that. So I
do you see good benefits from that?
Oh, it makes a huge difference to just stress levels mostly, and physical well-being, just feeling like not reducing reaction time or removing reaction, and just being able to sit there and say, okay, just take a breath And if something's not going according to plan, just walk away for a few minutes and then go back and analyse and say, okay, what's happened here? What's going on here? What do we need to do?
So it just makes you absorb information in a different way and process it differently.
Yeah.
And act on it differently.
Well, yeah, because I'm very much, I've very much in the past been reactive. Well, I guess reactive perhaps maybe my first reaction is a reaction and then I stop, whereas now I'm just trying to stop the reaction or reduce the reaction and sort of think about it more. And it's like, So, that's been beneficial and just lots of more personal development, looking at, where I want to be, where I want to go. And, myself, my partner, my kids are grown up now, so having children young was beneficial because I've got a 29-year-old and a 23-year-old turning 24 and 30. So they're both, working and they can do their own thing. I don't have to worry about kids anymore, which is good. So really it's just a matter of I'm just in a process of changing my priorities in downsizing houses and just making things, simplifying my life would be good.
Yes. So where do you see yourself in the next 10 years then?
I'd like to be in a position where I can travel more, have things set up here with work where it runs itself a little bit more without me.
Yeah.
And, just being able to, slow down a little. I mean, I don't think I'll ever stop working because I'll be bored.
Yeah.
I can't see myself doing that.
I'm the same.
I mean, retiring, what would you call retiring? I would call retiring just more time to do what you want, more money and time to do what you want.
But if you love what you do, then you're not really working, are you? It's just you're following your passion.
Exactly. I mean, I love what I do. People say, why do you do what you do? The first thing is I love it.
You're in a good position then. If you love what you do, it's half the battle, isn't it? And that's why we set up businesses for ourselves and become entrepreneurs so that we can be passionate about what we do and enjoy it. Yeah,
I love everything about, about the design, property, construction industry. A lot of what I deal with is is involved in construction, and it's fun. It's not a female-oriented job, not really, but it's still. I find it enjoyable. I find it interesting. It makes you think. It makes
There is more and more females getting involved, like with the real estate communities that I'm in. There's a lot of females in them, and they are driving hard to get to certain goals and certain targets, which is
that's good. The more female builders out there, the better. There's not a lot of them in Australia yet, but I see more and more. I mean, at the end of the day, as I said, it can be challenging at times, but every job's challenging. Everything is.
If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you, does it?
Exactly. If you're not pushed outside of your comfort zone, you're not going to grow, That's the big one.
Very true. So for anyone looking to get into, for instance, real estate or just setting up a business in general, have you got any tips that they could use to inspire them?
I guess getting into real estate, if you really want to do it, just make it a priority. If you haven't got any experience and you'd still like to get into subdivisions, get into anything to do with property, interact, like we said before, with groups. Start joining every group you can possibly find that has something to do with property, something to do with it. Within that mindset, change your mindset. What you think is where you go. What you believe is what will occur. Whatever you want to call it law of attraction's one term, call it whatever you want. But what you focus on is what actually will eventuate in the end. You focus on bad things, more bad things will come your way. You're just going to be it's just what you see. You won't, so what you believe is where things is it all going to, go cruisy and, in a straight line? Not necessarily. Is it going to be given to you on a silver platter? Well, if you're lucky, yes, but otherwise usually.
But then you wouldn't become the person you'd become, would you?
Well, you don't appreciate it either.
Exactly, If it was easy, then everybody would do it and we wouldn't be doing what we're doing.
And there's always opportunities every single day, every single minute of the day. There are opportunities. If one falls through, if you don't get this one and this one doesn't work and this, person that you were looking at working with doesn't go ahead for whatever reason, there are plenty more people out there. There are plenty more properties out there. You know, you just have to spend the time and believe what's happening, believe in what you want to do, you know, and go for it, because your enthusiasm, your whole persona, your motivation will be visible to other people. If they don't see it physically see it, they'll feel it.
Correct. Great. Good stuff. What's your 3 favourite books that you can recommend?
Oh, gosh, I don't have enough time to read books lately. I have been reading a few, but not I've been reading a lot of Joe Dispenza stuff lately. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. I've got one that sort of keeps getting opened and closed, and I'm getting there. Supernatural, that's brilliant. Yeah. I've read a little while ago recently, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, one of his other books, very much about, just, basically changing your mind to create your future. And off the top of my head, I can't think of many others right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a bit
Put you
slow.
on the spot.
And I still listen to Dipner Boholt podcasts and a couple of other podcasts. I can't remember the names and things on the Apple podcasting thing.
So, cool. And finally, what is your best place, or where is your best place to eat in Perth?
Best place to eat.
I know you're in Mount Lawley. There's some good places there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a couple of nice little places. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty straightforward. We don't. We go out. Oh, where did we go? Oh, goodness, that's a really good question. What's it called? Ishtar is a little Italian place on Beaufort Street. That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's pretty straightforward. Queen's Hotel's still pretty good.
Queen's is a good joint.
Yeah, it's good just to go there, just for something easy. The food's always reasonably good.
Yeah.
Atmosphere's good. It's very casual. You don't have to think about it. You can just go there without a second thought. Where else? Oh, if you want Indian, there's a couple of Indian places along there.
Two Fat Indians.
Is pretty good.
Got a few boozy nights in there.
Yeah, and then there's a couple of Thai places. Thai Moon in Walcott Street's good, and there's Swanee's place in Fitzgerald Street. That's also good. I sort of stick to somewhere close to where we are.
Walking distance.
Yeah, there's a couple of good places in Inglewood too now, which is close by.
I never think of Inglewood.
Yeah, there's a burger joint there. I can't remember what it's called. That wasn't bad.
Mm.
And, so all in all, I'd sort of nothing. If you want a nice place, Muss Wine Bar's always good. The food there's great.
Yeah, I've been there actually.
Yeah, it's been good for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Helena, thank you very much for coming on the show. Thanks for your time. Thanks for all the wisdom and information you've just given us.
Oh, hopefully it's wisdom. It's just experience, trial and error.
That's it. Well, look, again, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Join us next week for our next guest. And remember, every master was once a disaster and every winner was once a beginner.